So the client brought in this idea, right? But we're gonna invert the colors just so it gives a little bit better accenting to the maroon that's on it, or race red that they call it, I believe. Usually we take this portion out. So I've already taken this out and cleaned behind it on the actual SRTs for the actual removal process. So the best thing is to get a plastic trim removal tool, and there's gonna be 2 actual clips on the bottom of this that you're gonna disassemble real quick. Pop both those out, okay? So you can pop both those out, okay? It's gonna release it. You're gonna have 3 little sets of these right here, okay? Okay, not these. These little, yeah, those go actually to hold it. So this is not stock on these cars, right? So this guy had lights added. Well, they actually wired it all the way into the battery and everything. So we can't actually remove this out to do the installation. So we had to remove it, clean it really, really nice inside there, because in this area, it'll collect dust and glue and everything. As you can tell, the stock glue's already been removed because they had this previously worked on. The lights look really cool, but it does kind of pose a little bit of an issue on installation because we actually are going to have to trim right on this area right here. And we just want to make sure that we don't cut any paint, number 1, but number 2, that it's not going to actually vibrate and rattle in this area. Most people that do installations on this right here, if you've never done one on these SRTs, it'll actually rattle. So if you don't do this correctly and trim it back where it needs to be, it'll actually kind of wrinkle up just right in this area on both sides. So, but I've already clay barred it, so I'm gonna run an actual tack rag on it before I go. Yeah, so this is 3M's knifeless tape. So for this installation, if you were just doing a hood wrap on this, you're gonna need 70% to 90% isopropyl alcohol, a chamois rag, clean chamois rag. You're gonna need knifeless tape, and you're gonna need a clip popper. I prefer the Ghost wrap gloves, and then we actually use a specific blade. These are actually the NT cutters. Safest blades. So since this is knifeless and I do have an extra set of hands with me, I'm gonna get Alex to come over here real quick and we're gonna install this real quick, okay? We can just do half and half, so we can line it up. So we like to do a half and half.
Are we good?
Come back this way, my way, my way, my way, my way. That's fine, that's fine. Get on the edge and I'll get a little bit, yeah, we'll get a little bit of a stretch. No worries. Yeah. Yeah, I did. Well, because it's on the picture, so yeah, I had to make sure. Look at it. Thank you. So we'll get glass real quick and then we'll start squeegeing on it. Thank you, Alex. So right here, I'm gonna kind of show you guys. We had a little, things happen kind of in vinyl sometimes, and you can push vinyl to an extent and then you don't want to push vinyl to an extent, right? So being that I've installed vinyl for so long, I kind of already know what to expect. So as an example, right here, when Alex was actually cutting the material, he didn't realize that I had actually flared it out, right? So, and I did that on my own accord before, in between the process of him doing the original measurement. So with that being said, there's a little bit of a gap right here, right? So we're gonna do a cold stretch, okay? Now, it's really amazing at what this film can do, right? So we're gonna cold stretch up past that point, get a good tack right there, okay? We're gonna get this here, kind of leave it open for some tension, okay? And I'm gonna kind of do that because I know it's gonna roll. So we'll leave that there. On this side, you kind of have to know your capabilities with it. And on this, unfortunately, even if I wiggled as much as I can on a cold stretch, I'm probably not gonna be able to reach that there without overstretching it with no heat. So here, I'm gonna get it there and tack it. And then I'm gonna show you guys how we can stretch this material without actually having failure. So first I'm gonna start down here. You'll see we're gonna apply some heat to this, and you'll see it kind of shrinking right before your eyes, right? Really cool. So the reason I'm doing this is because I want it to conform to it prior to me putting any type of squeegee down or anything like that. And then whenever I come up here, I'm gonna kind of run everything here. 3M again too is also notorious for you having to do like double, triple, sometimes even quadruple squeegeeing just to get the actual bubbles out. And so you kind of want to heat up that adhesive on the back side before you start squeegeeing anyways. Kind of see it conform right into spot. So right here, I'm just going to relieve it a little bit, right? We'll add some heat And then I'm gonna, a little method I call wiggling. And as you can see, we're way past that. Notice that?
I see, yeah.
See the line? So, but there doesn't seem to be any extra tension put anywhere else. Then I'm gonna come right back over here before I actually squeegee that down. I'm gonna put some extra heat on it. I'm gonna watch it kind of move itself. That way it's already shrinking on itself before I actually have to do anything.
It's kind of cool, you see it move.
It really is. Vinyl is very intricate. It has some fun movements on it and stuff, you know, so. Now, I'm messing up today, busting a rookie move, and I actually don't have my squeegee on me, so I gotta go get one. Absolutely. If you can't have fun at work, you know what I mean? So
you're spraying what on there?
So this is 90% isopropyl alcohol, okay? I'm just doing this because it helps me glide over the actual wrap smoother. Now, a lot of people use different squeegees. There's a lot of squeegees and things like that on the market as well. I prefer to use a Geek Wraps Chrome squeegee. Over the years, I just feel like I've had the best luck with installations, and you know, I just feel like it doesn't damage material like some others do on occasion. Everyone claims to have like a scratch-free felt and all of that stuff, but this is actually what I prefer. So, Geek Wraps. And in most cases, we actually, on full vehicle wraps, we have a brand new squeegee every single time. I mean, keep in mind, that's a lot of it, you know. You'll see some wraps where they actually have like scratches on them, or you know, they'll have random streak lines or something like that. That's usually because they didn't have a clean squeegee, or they were using a squeegee that dropped on the ground, or they picked it up and thought it wasn't going to get any contaminants or debris or something like that. But felt picks up a lot. So you'll notice too in this area, this is what I'm talking about with that 3M adhesive. See, you notice how we put everything down, right? But I'm going to have to go over it and over it and over it, yep, just to be able to get that stuff. So that's the importance of having like the actual, the moisture there that helps us kind of glide over it a lot smoother without damaging it because of the amount of pressure that we have to put on, right? So, and I don't like to put too much pressure on it, even though I know it requires it, just because I know that there's stuff that can happen, you know? So the last thing I want to do, especially on satin or matte films, which I hate installing matte films, is get my squeegee at the wrong angle, and it causes like an actual streak in the middle of a panel or something, you know? And it's happened. On this portion, it's a recess, right? And because I don't get the luxury of taking that portion out, I'm not gonna really have the luxury of trying to push it in and not get a glue line. So I kind of have to attack this a little differently, right? Because of the nature of this installation, right? So if you take a look here, I've already kind of closed everything off. The vent itself is functional, so the vent actually has air that flows through. Whenever you're doing an installation, the most important thing to actually note is you don't want to trap your air, okay? So you want to have some place for your air to actually go. Right here, what I like to do is I know that my squeegee is not actually, you know, it doesn't bend enough for me to get in all these areas. So I wet my glove, okay? Then I go ahead and start actually heating the film, letting it get a little bit pliable, right? And then I'm gonna start attacking it, right? But I have to be quick about it. And then whenever I see a relief cut, I'm gonna have to make a relief cut in this area. That way I can drop the rest of it in and make sure that I don't get a glue line, okay? So, I mean, there is a little bit of expertise that comes to this stuff, you know, and in recent years, there's been a big influx in, you know, just hobbyists taking it up and things like that as well, but there really inherently is a specific way that you should tackle some of this stuff, so. But it can be learned. Okay, ready? Do a relief cut now right here. Okay. See how we've already made it to the actual plastic, right? So I wanna make sure I cut this portion off right here before I throw any heat to it. And the reason is because if I were to throw heat to it right now, it would have pulled back and it would have actually caused a glue line. I also have to be very careful not to actually cut what's behind here, which is plastic, right? So you have to be really really knowledgeable of what you're working on. Take a picture before you do the installation if you have any like questions to yourself. This portion right here is actually a rock chip, so we've pointed that out to the client, but here's the actual hard black plastic, right? So this hard black plastic is what we're talking about. This is actually in this corner right here. This is actually what causes it to wrinkle up. And in most cases, we would be installing with this off, but as I showed you, it has lights behind it, and there's nothing we can do about that. So he had that done prior to actually coming here, so. Okay, everything looks really, really good. So, come back over here, we're gonna close off this top portion. So right now, what I'm doing is kind of just coming over everything. I'm kind of giving what most people call a post-heat. I like to do this prior to actually popping any knifeless or anything like that. Make sure that I've kind of erased the memory out of the film. The last thing you wanna do is not do this and then pop the actual knifeless itself. And then next thing you know, the film retracts back on you and you can't actually save it. So you gotta strip it off and do a new panel, which means you waste money and lose money, which is the opposite of what you wanna do in business. So here you're gonna notice, come here. So this is actually where the tension was in that area. You saw that, right? So whenever I made the relief cut, that gave me the option to not have that tension, but take a look. So this is a tension with heat on it. See how it's split in that area?
Yeah.
It's gonna continue to split too, see? Because that's tension. So you have to relieve that tension. Nobody wants to have vinyl failures. But to relieve the tension. Feel the tension in the air.
I can feel the tension in the air.
Relieve it. Okay, so, and then you also have to be very smart about where you're popping your knifeless and stuff too, man. A lot of times people will make that mistake. So we have a little bit left under there, so I'm gonna leave just a little bit for me to work with. I don't know why, but this is like people's like favorite part, you know?
Satisfying.
It really is. So once you get it going, you definitely want to follow the actual line itself and not let it you don't want to pull it at certain angles, right? Because if I was to come over here and pull the knifeless at that angle, it would pull like the line this way, you know? So
Right.
Sorry, Drew. Watch out for my fanny.
Ah, watch my fanny's coming through. Watch it. Make room for Fanny.
What's that on? Yeah, the man, it's the guy, yeah. Watch out for my fanny. He would do that voice and we were like, dude, that's uncanny. So knifeless, when you split the knifeless, it actually has two different filaments. So you have to make sure that you go back and you get the second filament. I've actually been doing removals before where they actually left the second filament and I'm like, man, that just kind of looks like an odd line. And then you pull it up and it has green behind it. Pretty funny. I mean, if you're a volume installer or something like that, I mean, it's not like it's a bad installation. I mean, it still has adhesive underneath it, but yeah. So we're just gonna pull this last line here. Right? I have a little bit of a wrinkle over here, kind of like on the edge from just some bleed, right? I'm actually gonna make sure I straighten that out and then pop it, because I just wanna give myself the best chance, right? And again, there's two filaments, so we're gonna peel this back, right? Okay, and I think we got both of them. We'll go check up here and make sure. Looks like I got two here. Yep, definitely got two. And you're gonna be able to notice too, if you have a filament underneath it, you know? You don't wanna leave vinyl on the ground because it actually attracts dust. So a lot of times you'll see where underneath an actual panel, it's wrapped and it kind of looks all loose and everything. The best way to do it is to actually know how much of the blade you're using, number one. Number two, I actually like to use the back side of the panel itself as an actual kind of guide for myself, and I just leave myself a little bit. You don't need a tremendous amount on the back side. Just leave yourself a little bit. Enough to roll under. I've seen some where they have it like wrapped way underneath there. I'm like, what's the point of that? So you see the way my blade was dragging that right there?
Yeah.
Just readjust it. Line's still pretty. The blade just gets in the way a little bit because but that's what the guard's for, you know? So, but this here, this is the same exact thing here. So I normally would have taped that off, but we're gonna leave just enough. There's a tension there that I can do. So I'm gonna be really gentle with my cut here. I'm just gonna bring it along this line. We're gonna make sure that we don't cut through to the rubber on the back side, leaving just enough for us to actually make that overlap, and at the same time allow us to get that fold in between that rubber as well. Notice how that folded all the way under, okay? We'll pop that here momentarily and show you guys that, and then we'll finish this piece off, okay? So here, I'm just gonna put this, we like to pull this back, get that behind it, and we'll come back and do it again, right? Make sure that everything's in there, okay? Get this little tuck here. Voila. Notice here, we have enough, nice and pretty.
So make sure they focus.
Nothing crazy overlapped, nothing all down here. So we left ourselves a little bit here, and the reason is because we have a little bit of a flap underneath, right? So, I mean, there's two options. You could flush cut that, lay a piece of knifeless and flush cut it, or you could just tuck it underneath. So it doesn't go too far back, about an inch, inch and a half. So we're gonna go ahead and just tuck that into the plastic here. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get a nice post heat. And then you wanna let that actually cool, okay? Before you do the cut, give me one moment. So this is cooled off, so now I can go ahead and do that. Again, you're always gonna wanna probably pop a new blade every 1 to 2 cuts. We don't like using the same blade for every single cut. It dulls it down, and then you don't know the actual strength that you're cutting at, you know what I mean? So, and y'all noticed here that there is actually no cut on the rubber whatsoever. So it's just really being knowledgeable about kind of where your blade's going. Even though I should have taped that off, and I should have taped this off. In most cases, you should tape it off. If you're skilled enough, you don't have to, which can save on material, but there is a human error that comes into play, so. Okay, so here, just wanna get a good position, make sure that you're not slipping or anything like that. Again, I like to use the actual plastic there kind of as a guide, so I'm letting my blade kind of sit directly in between that and using it on the actual plastic itself. So it's not cutting the plastic, as you can tell there. It's just really just kind of in between it, see? Mm-hmm. So then you'll get yourself, boom, there. Get your squeegee, run a nice little line, because you have a little bit coming up there. See this whenever I put it down, everything looks good. So the last step would really be just to actually go ahead and post heat that as well, but we're gonna move on to this, this portion. So again, we're gonna advise the client that this is the route that we had to actually go. So, but here you're just gonna want to make sure that you're, again, applying the right amount of pressure. And here I'm just scoring the vinyl, okay? You just wanna score the vinyl. Vinyl is not as thick as paint protection film, so if you can just score the vinyl really by just letting your blade set on it and tracing it, of course you have to be very concentrated as well. There is a point of like hand fatigue, probably back fatigue, and eye fatigue that comes in. So over time, once you get better at practicing, and that kind of stamina gets better, but if you gotta take a rest or whatever, make sure that you're applying enough. So you see that? Very, very, very light. I mean, I wasn't even really applying even but the tip of it, and it'll actually do it. So you'll notice here, I'll give you kind of an example, right? See how I didn't cut all the way through, but there's an actual cut there? Ready?
Wow.
See? So, and that's how you can practice too. You can just get random vinyl. I like to do S-test and things like that. But notice it's not cut through, right? You apply pressure and it pops perfect on that cut. So you have to, again, practice makes perfect. The wrong practice never makes perfect though, you know? So you gotta be practicing correctly. And if you wanna retrace that line again, you're more than welcome to retrace the line and start back on it too. But again, the point of this, again, most cases we wouldn't have to, you know, we wouldn't have to be actually cutting with this on the car. It would be removed. Unfortunately, this client had some electronic lights and things like that applied to the back side of it that don't have a quick connect. So we don't like to get into removing things that we didn't install like that because in most cases they're not really installed correctly. I didn't look too much past that point on this one, but we don't want to mess with any of the electrical stuff. So we're gonna move up to the top here. This one's gonna be a little bit even tighter of a gap, so you have to be even more careful on this, right? So this one we actually aren't even really getting the luxury of that actual gap down on the bottom. So I'm applying even less pressure. You see how the blade is, I mean, like it's less than even a millimeter into it. So the technique I just showed you about barely scoring the vinyl just now is what I'm doing here. It's not actually even cutting through the vinyl right now from where my actual viewpoint is. It's barely scoring it, and then we're gonna apply a little bit of pressure to pop it off. Okay, let's see. See? Okay, so we're gonna come here, we're gonna finish this last piece, and we're gonna post heat it all, and then we'll do our pinstripes. Pressure. All right. Yeah. So again, in most cases this would be removed and we wouldn't really have to do any of this stuff, but this client had some pretty cool LEDs installed. I actually kind of do like the way that they put them. They're really cool. But we're also doing this in hopes that it's not going to wrinkle up in this area as well, because that's kind of notorious on these cars. The gap is just so tight, you know? Okay, so perfect. Oh, we got a little bit right here we need to put down. All right, so. Okay.
Oh, I thought you, sorry, I meant on the outside.
Oh.
I don't want it to run into this.
Oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
I just realized you did that.
Yeah, I was like.
I didn't notice that you guys waiting for this.
Yeah, it's okay, no worries. Here, I'll leave it like that up there and then I'll just come and redo it real quick. But I'm gonna put it right on the border here to where it like.
That way it doesn't crunch.
Yeah, I want it to, it's gonna be like barely like touching right there. And then I'll come back and do the. Yeah. You don't wanna like distort you don't want to distort it too much, because if you start pilling up too much, you're not going to be able to actually put it back down, you know? Yeah. Like straight at least. So here I'm just really actually following that line and using it kind of as like my guideline here. And we'll finish in here, okay? It looks perfect. All right. So he wanted us to kind of create like a line for him that really wasn't even existing per se. So we're gonna pull this back here, and then we're gonna bring that to that barely overlaps here, right? Okay. I'm gonna get a quick tack right there. Good luck. Let me come and look at that line. That looks good. Everything looks good except for right there. So let me see. That line needs to go out further. You see how it barely overlaps, like until we get to there perfectly? Right. So the only thing is this is really hard when you're freaking short. So if you can be tall as a rapper, that definitely helps. All right. Mucho bueno.
That's good.
Does look really good, actually. I do like the color sway. So we actually will plot our pinstripes out. So it's all done on a computer. And you just can't get better than a dang computer, you know what I mean?
If you have it, you use it.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I really like, I mean, we use lasers and shit too, but you know, I really like using computer cut. Computer cut to me is just like the holy grail of precision, so. All right, Alex, looks good, dude. All right, guys, we just finished up the 392 wide body race red. We did the satin dark gray with the white aluminum pinstripe. This was actually the client's idea. He provided us a picture. We just implemented it, and I think it came out great. So we're gonna get this one cleaned up, get some pictures of it, and then we'll send it out the door. It's another one